I'm back, everybody. I had to get on live. I had to come back and give my 2 cents as to what's been going on with NFL free agency. It's been a literal frenzy. Moves going, moves being rescinded, just everything that you can possibly imagine. There's so many trades. Leading up into the draft, this is going to be one of the more crazier offseason. But big news of yesterday, going into today, if no one hadn't heard by now in the NFL and football universe, the Baltimore Ravens rescinded the trade that sent Max Crosby to the Ravens for 2 first-round picks to the Raiders, and that trade got rescinded due to medical reasons. That's what was reported, I'll say. I personally think that there's a lot more to that we don't know. But even though medicals could be a real thing, though, I mean, I'm not discounting that in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying it's never, especially in these league circles, it's never just medicals. It always has to be something else. And as far as my thoughts on it, I kind of see it from both sides, man. And I hate to give the cop out answer, but I do see it from both sides. I see it from the Raven side of not wanting to go through it after you see, his medicals, and you go out and you get an independent doctor to come and and you come to evaluate him, and everything isn't coming back, positively. And then on top of that, you're giving up 2 first-round picks, which is a very, steep and hefty price. However, for somebody like Max Crosby, who's been a top 5 edge rusher in the league for the better part of, we'll say 4 seasons, 2 or 3, I'll say 2 or 3 seasons, excuse me. I think the trade was worth it, but on the Raiders side, it's like giving up 2 first-round picks is tough, man. And you could have used one of those picks to trade back. I'll get to some of the moves that they've made. They signed Tyler Linderbaum, to an $81 million deal where he got, I believe it was, what did Tyler Linderbaum get? 60 mil guaranteed. What's going on, Troy? What's going on, Coach? Appreciate y'all hopping into the live. But yeah, man, it's I understand it from both sides. Like they could have used, or they can now, they can use one of those first-round picks to trade back and just build their roster because they need talent across the entire roster. So, I mean, honestly, this might be a blessing in disguise, for the Raiders, to not have this deal, go through and them, get their star pass rusher back and keep their first-round picks. So, I'm sorry. The Ravens keep their first-round picks. Excuse me, I forgot. The Ravens gave up their first-round picks. Let me, correct that. But yeah, they could have used those first-round picks to trade back and get more picks. That's all. That's what I'm a fan of all the time. Just trade back, get more picks, and building out your roster with young, not as pricey talent. Like that's the name of the game. Like how many, how much cheap talent can you get across the roster? Once you get a franchise quarterback to take advantage of these Super Bowl windows. So, like I said, I understand it from both sides. It just sucks for the Raiders, who seemed like they were ready to move on, and now they got to take Max Crosby back. I don't really think Max was like really trying to leave in the first place. I think he was just more frustrated, and then on top of that, this is the same guy who has a Raiders tattoo, on him. You know what I mean? So I love to see Max back. Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone in the chat. Logical, appreciate you, hopping into the live. Appreciate you showing love. But yeah, so Max, going back to the Raiders, I think it's a good move for them. One of the things that I'm looking at this from one of the angles I'm looking at this from is edge rusher is one of those positions where you don't need someone else to affect the game. Like it's not a dependent position, which is why they're so highly paid, is because a top flight edge rusher can literally wreck a game by themselves. I've seen Max Crosby do it. If you go back a couple years ago, I believe it's like 2 or 3 years ago, it was the Raiders versus the Chargers on Sunday night. And, I believe that game was to get the it was to get the Chargers into the playoffs. And you saw Max Crosby just dominate that game. I believe that game went into overtime, and I believe that was Josh Jacobs last year in Las Vegas, and Max Crosby just really showed his value to me that day, that he can be a game changing, left tackle. He was going against a tackle by the name of Storm Norton, who wasn't really that good, right? But he dominated him, and that's what top flight edge rushers are supposed to do, dominate individually and make game changing plays. And I feel like, Max Crosby has shown that he can do that in the pass game and the run game. So listen, I understand the trade on both sides. I understand rescinding the trade. I understand this is kind of dirty business in the league that you don't see teams often, if at all, rescind trades after, going through with them. So I do think it personally, works out for both sides. The Ravens keep their picks, and then the Raiders get their star, pass rusher back, and now he gets the opportunity to get healthy in a familiar environment, which I think is valuable. And then it worked out for the Ravens because they immediately pivot and sign Trey Hendrickson to hold on, let's get the numbers. I don't want to mess it up. Trey Hendrickson, what did they sign him to? I believe it was $100 million deal that they signed Trey Hendrickson, excuse me, to what is it? Trey Hendrickson, they signed him to a 4-year, $112 million deal. So I mean, they immediately pivoted to the next best edge rusher on the market, and hopefully it works out for him. Trey Hendrickson, I believe it was 2 years ago, he led the NFL in sacks. So hopefully he can recapture that form after also being hurt. I mean, there's a lot of hurt edge rushers. Hopefully he can recapture that form to the Ravens, a team that last year that could not get any pressure on the quarterback, especially when it mattered. With a new coach coming in and not Mike McDonald, with a new coach coming in and Jesse Minter. And, installing a new system, having a pass rusher of Trey Hendrickson's caliber always makes the play caller's life easier and makes the DB's life easier, which is, again, why these guys get paid, so much money. So, I like the Trey Hendrickson move. He's not my favorite edge rusher, but, he has shown that he can be productive over a long stretch of time, and I'm glad that he finally got that money that he was looking for. He kind of took a stance, in Cincinnati for the last couple years, demanding to get paid, and he thought he was going to get that payday, from Cincinnati. But unfortunately, he goes to a division rival, and now Cincinnati, has to see him twice a year. So that I know they're not really too happy about that. But again, for Cincinnati, this is what happens when you're a cheap franchise and don't want to pay your players, your defensive players anyway. They've paid Joe Burrow, they've paid T. Higgins, they've paid Jamar Chase, but somebody, they can't pay everyone. So I get it from that standpoint. But, it just sucks for Joe Burrow, because with an offensive line that isn't great, there's so many top pass rushers that he has to go against now in terms of, you got now Trey Hendrickson for the Ravens, you got T.J. Watt from the Steelers, and who's the other NFC? And then you got Myles Garrett, you got to go against twice a year too, so that's quite a gauntlet of edge rushers that Joe Burrow is going to have to face. So, hopefully the Bengals shore up that line to try to, get Joe Burrow some help, and get him some time. They have the weapons. That's never been an issue. It's just about protecting Joe Burrow and giving him a requisite run game, to be effective. So I think they'll do that, and I'm optimistic that let me say this: they have to get Joe Burrow some help on that offensive line. They don't want to lose him via trade. So, let's see what goes. But Owens, Freaking I appreciate you following the live. If y'all in the chat, man, if y'all can, share the live, I greatly appreciate it. My goal always to come on live is to follow and find the people who, love to talk football and love to talk about this game, because this is what I love, man. I love talking about this game. I love breaking down the moves for y'all. I love, again, just coming on live. I got to be more consistent. I'm trying to do it week to week. I've been more consistent through this year. So I will clap it up for that. It's been a small win for me. I've been posting every day, but I'm going to continue to, try to go live as much as I possibly can. So, again, if y'all could share the live, I would greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone in here that's watching and tuning in right now. So, but what we're here for is my top 10 free agent moves of this free agent frenzy 2026. And first move They're like, so I did a combination of trades and signings, right? And so if everyone has been following me and follow my live and follow my page, everybody knows that I'm a huge Rams fan. And so therefore, my first move that I love is Trent McDuffie traded to the Rams and also getting a 4-year, $124 million extension from the Rams to make him the highest DB paid ever in NFL history, I believe. When I immediately heard this move, I was immediately ecstatic. I have been saying for upwards of 3 years now that Trent McDuffie is the best DB in the league. I didn't say corner. I didn't say safety. I didn't say slot corner. I said Trent McDuffie is the best DB in the league in terms of being able to cover one-on-one, whether that's outside or in the slot, being able to tackle or being a cog in a run game, or being able to blow up these screens. There is not anything that Trent McDuffie cannot do for you in that defensive backfield. And the fact that most people who follow the Rams and have watched them closely can pinpoint that one of the reasons why we lost in the NFC Championship game and one of our Achilles heel, actually the entire season, has been our defensive backfield. So for us to be aggressive as we usually are and go get the best DB in the league, that screams, again, F them picks, first of all, and that the Rams still feel like they're in that Super Bowl window, which they are, right? Stafford's coming back. Puka Nakua's, going to come back healthy. Our offensive line is solidified where we have, Alaric Jackson at left tackle. We found, Warren McClendon, who filled in nicely for Havenstein, who ultimately retired. So all of the pieces are there. Only thing that I would say, and I will caution people on, is you have to expect some type of regression. I believe the Rams are one of the best run defense teams in the league this year. However, I do think that there will be a little slight regression coming for the defense. Trent definitely raises your ceiling. Where's Max going? I think Max stays in I was about to say Oakland, in Las Vegas, to be quite honest with you. The Cowboys are probably market favorites right now to probably get him because they had the second best offer. But I think he stays in Vegas, unfortunately. But back to Trent McDuffie. But yeah, man, I just think that I don't think we're gonna have the best defense in the league next year. It's definitely gonna take Chris Shula some time to integrate him into the defense and kind of figure out what his role is. I think I know what his role is. I thought he was going to play star for us, but Quentin Lake is going to play star. They're saying he's only going to play outside corner, but I feel like if he's only playing outside corner, that just doesn't do us any justice, right? I think Trent is best when he's moving all across the defense, making plays. I think he could play even a little safety, even a little deep safety for us, But I know we just signed Cam Curl back too, so we'll see what it looks like, man. But I just know that the ceiling for our defense has definitely raised. We need that same type of consistency, from the defensive line, with all of that, talent across the roster. This probably means that Byron Young is probably not going to get a fat contract from the Rams. Probably going to get a big contract from somebody else. But again, I still love what we have across the entire roster on all three levels. I would love for us. Joe Flacco, yes, I'm a Rams fan. Look at my page. I got, Rams paraphernalia all on there. And it's on my one of my pinned TikToks too. So yes, sir, I am a Rams fan. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna have the best defense. And again, I just wanna see where it goes. I think, I think Trent is a great move for us, and I love the Jalen Watson move, right? So we got all of the cornerbacks, the starting quarterback tandem from the Chiefs that come right over to the Rams. So I'm cool with it. Listen, I like the Chiefs secondary, and I'm glad that the Rams got him now. Jalen Watson, they got him a 3-year, $51 million deal, I believe. So, these are good moves. These are great moves. So I'm going to see what the chat's saying. Chat saying Joe Flacco said, thank God we backed out of the Crosby. Not worth that risk. I wouldn't say it's not worth that risk because, again, you're going after a guy who's arguably a top 5 edge in the league, and when healthy, he can single-handedly dominate games. And that's no exaggeration or hyperbole. He can single-handedly dominate games. Any team can use that. Ravens, especially because they could not get pressure with anybody, and they especially couldn't get pressure without bringing more than four. So for a team like the Ravens, it made a lot of sense. 2 first-round picks, that is steep, but I understood it because, like I had said on a previous live, with a team like the Ravens, who have historically been known and have built a brand off of tough defense, hard-nosed defensive play, getting pressure on a quarterback and being scary, for them not to have that, a guy like Max Crosby will definitely immediately make them better, in that aspect. So, it was more of a, obviously it was a winning move, but it was a brand move too, right? The Ravens can't be a team who doesn't get pressure on a quarterback. That's never been their thing. So I know you're saying it was a risk, but I think it was a necessary risk. Joe Flacco says, "Knife. If it wasn't for Xavier Smith, y'all, we go to the bowl." Man, listen, I wouldn't just blame it on Xavier Smith. It's the entire team, man. Like, yes, he did have one of the biggest blunders, in the game in terms of that special teams, because he had muffed it possession prior and then he fumbled. So I'm not gonna just blame it on him. Like, we also couldn't get a stop. We also couldn't get pressure on Sam Darnold. And I tell people all the time, Sam Darnold played just as well as Stafford did. Stafford had 500 yards and I believe 3 or 4 touchdowns, right? And Sam Darnold played just as well as Stafford did. So, you got all of these first-round picks on the line between Verse, between Fisk, Byron Young, who's not a first-round pick, but it's still a high pick for, an edge. And then you had, who's our other? Oh, and Kobe Turner, excuse me. Like, between the four of them, I'm expecting them to get some pressure. But when they're not getting pressure, we didn't have the requisite defensive back talent to stay with their wide receivers. I mean, Shaheed catches a deep bomb, and then JSN just going crazy all game. I believe one drive, JSN caught 4 passes. Like, how does the best player on the offense at wide receiver, how do we let him catch 4+ passes, excuse me, on one drive? Like, what are we doing? So I don't want to just blame it on Xavier Smith. Yes, he played a big part of it, but it's a team game. It's all 3 phases, and in all 3 phases, you could critique, except for the offense, but the defense and special teams, there's definitely some critique to be had and some blame to take there. Joe Flacco also says we had Dr. Daniel Cooper, best knee specialist. Look at Crosby. Something seriously bad is going on. Yes, that's what they're saying. So only time will tell. Like I said, they went out and got an independent doctor and didn't like what they see. So we'll see, if that remains to be true. His agent put something out yesterday and said that he's ahead of schedule. So, again, this is why I hate this part, because it's all he said, she said. The only way we can really tell who wins is if, we play on the field and we don't get any games till August. So it's really like a wait and see type thing, unfortunately. So getting back into the moves. So the Trent McDuffie move was my top move in free agency for the Rams, even though it was a trade. Like I said, I'm doing a mix of trade and free agent moves. Next move I love is Chiefs. This is a free agent move. The Chiefs signing K9, Kenneth Walker, to a 3-year, $43 million deal with $28 million guaranteed. Now, one thing I want to clear up is I did say that running back is the least valuable position in football, and it still is the least valuable position in football. However, when you get a guy such as K9, who is a game changer at running back, who runs with the expert level of patience, who has the burst, who has that open field acceleration to get away from the defense and create explosive plays, I believe Kenneth Walker had more explosive runs than the entire Chiefs running backs combined. Just in the playoffs alone, that might I add. Right? So they immediately go from having one of the least explosive run games to one of the most explosive run games. And if I'm going to pay $43 million to a running back and give him $28 million guaranteed, that is the type of explosiveness I'm looking for. There are only maybe, I'll say, 6 to 7 backs that can do that in the NFL right now. And when there is a back out there available for a team like the Chiefs, who had a lot of requisite pieces in place and have shown that they can win as long as they have a Patrick Mahomes on the field, this move makes a lot of sense. They have one of the best O lines in the league. Based upon what I saw, they have 3/5 of their offensive line, under contract. They need to find a left tackle. But as far as the interior, between Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Sima Matia, I hope I've said his name correctly, right? They have that interior, locked down pretty much. And again, mixing what they have on the offensive line with what Kenneth Walker brings to the table from an explosive standpoint, I think this is a win-win all the way around. With Patrick Mahomes coming off of an ACL injury, they need to take, excuse me, y'all. They need to take a more cautious approach when it comes to his recovery and not putting so much on his plate. Ladarius says, "Do you think Tyreek Hill come back?" I'll be honest with you. It would be smart if he did. It would be a very judicious move if he did. They need a deep threat. I know everybody is really high on Rashee Rice. Even though he can play, he's shown that he cannot be counted on to keep his nose clean off the field. Whether it's the accident, whether it's baby mama trouble, he has not shown that he can be mature off the field. Now, I know the same can be said about Tyreek Hill, but it's something about going to a familiar place that makes you act accordingly. And Tyreek Hill is a little older. I believe he's 31 now. So I think it would make a great move. Again, it never hurts to go back to a quarterback that you're familiar with. And, if you look at a lot of the commentary around when Tyreek Hill left, I had got the sentiment that he never really wanted to leave Kansas City. Obviously, Kansas City just didn't have the money to pay him. So now, circle back around, what is this, 3 seasons later, and now you get an opportunity to go back to the team, and he's probably not going to command that much money like he did before, obviously, when he was younger. So, I think it'd be a great move for them to do that. But, going back to Patrick Mahomes, with him coming off of an ACL injury, I do believe that they need to take some pressure off of him. And I think getting a back like K9 who can force missed tackles, who can be explosive in the open field, and who can do the things that he can do, I think this is a great move for KC. And I think it'll immediately put them back as one of the top 5 teams in the AFC at the very least. Who you think KC going to take at 9 and 29? At 9, I hope that they would take the best offensive tackle available. At 29, I hope they trade back and just get more solid players. I mean, you can argue at 29 they might take a corner. But, again, if you have 2 first-round picks, you should at least use one of those picks to trade back. Because you're picking at 29. What's the difference between picking at 29 and picking at 45? You know what I mean? Or 35. I don't think it's that big of a difference. So, with 9, I hope they take the best offensive tackle available just because they don't have a solid starter at left tackle right now. And then I hope, with 29, I hope they trade back and just kind of build their roster. Maybe get another wide receiver, get more weapons, get a Travis Kelce replacement. And I hated to see that he came back on a 1-year 12. I had said on a previous live, I hope he retire. But I guess he said Taylor Swift convinced him to come back and play another year. Whatever. But I don't want to see my boy out of shape, barely able to get separation, not being able to really do anything after the catch, man. I want to remember him for that, Hall of Fame level tight end that we know and love and remember. So hopefully after this 1-year, $12 million deal that he hang it up and go on to be a full-time podcaster. But, I can't hate on it too much because Patrick is familiar with him. But again, he's older. He's got other things going on in his life that he can make, good money from. Got a billionaire fiance. So it's just what are we really doing now? You've already proven that you're a Hall of Fame caliber tight end. What else do you need to prove? You have more than one Super Bowl. You have many tight end records. Like what else do you need to prove? You're one of the best to ever do it, and you'll go down in the history books as one of the best tight ends to ever do it. So, yeah, you know what? What's funny, Juice Box Hero? Thank you for being in the live and contributing, man. If you could share it, I greatly appreciate it. But I was saying that the other day. I said, yo, they need to push Travis Kelce out by drafting Sadiq. And if they draft Sadiq, I think that'll be like the indicator, like, yo, we're trying to move forward from the Chiefs. Like, that's really what I want them to do. I would have also loved for them to trade for Kyle Pitts. That is what I would have loved for them to do. Because, man, I want to see what Kyle Pitts' tag was. Where is it? I'm going to do the Chiefs. No, I'm going to the Falcons. Atlanta Falcons. They franchised Kyle Pitts for $15 million. Why couldn't the Chiefs give up? Yeah, I know they tagged Pitts, but my point is they tagged Pitts for 15 mil. Why couldn't the Chiefs give up? Let's say they gave up one of their first round picks. I would have gave up one of the first round picks for Kyle Pitts. Imagine if Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense with signing K9, right? Imagine how much more explosive they would be. So then you have brought up bringing back Tyreek Hill. So you would have Tyreek Hill, Kyle Pitts, Rashee Rice if he can stay out of trouble, K9, Patrick. Like, I love all of that, right? And for $15 million, I could have signed Kyle Pitts to like a 3-year, let's say 3-year 36 or something like that. I think that would have been worth it for them. Yeah, they haven't been able to open his talent, but since his rookie year, I'll say, like, he hasn't been able to, reproduce what he showed in his rookie year when he was able to go for over 1,000 yards. I still think he has that in him, though. Maybe even with Stefanski, he might still have that. I mean, Stefanski got the best out of David Njoku, and David Njoku was in a position to get a second contract. So, I mean, maybe he can do that same thing for Kyle Pitts. They obviously need to figure out what they want to do at the quarterback position in Atlanta, but I love Kyle Pitts. I don't think he's a scrub. And I think when Michael Penix was healthy, I think he played really well, showing that if he has a competent quarterback that he has a rapport with, he can be a difference maker. So I know I got off on a tangent on that, but I would have loved, I had said like way before Atlanta even tagged Kyle Pitts, I said, yo, the Chiefs should trade for Kyle Pitts. That would be the nice heir apparent to Travis Kelce. But I like, getting Sadiq too. That'd be a great move. But they need to do something to push Travis Kelce out. Because even though the Chiefs don't have anybody that's as good as Travis Kelce or has as much talent as him, they need to get somebody in there that can push him out. And Sadiq is somebody athletically that can push him out. So that's all I'm saying. So I'm getting to my third move. My second move was K9 signing to the Chiefs for 3 years, 43 mil with 28 guaranteed. Also from a process standpoint, before I move forward to my third move. Again, like I said, running back contracts aren't my favorite, right? But when it's these contracts, you have to remember, if they're a 3-year contract, that means the last year is an option, right? So you really tied to him for 2 years, 28 mil. So you really get 2 years and you got 14 mil guaranteed that he got over 2 years. So like, I don't hate that contract for somebody like him. You're not tied to him long term because 28 is usually the year where running backs start to dissipate, right? But if you're signing only a 2-year deal with only 2 years of guaranteed money, then after that third year, you're not tied to him long term and don't have massive dollars tied up into him in that third year. It's a great move from a team building standpoint, a process standpoint, and a financial standpoint. So I like this move, for the Chiefs. We definitely need to keep looking ahead for Kelce replacement for sure. I would love for them to get Sadiq. I like the Thornton move to keep. I like the Thornton move to keep him. The guys have a stud. They just need to use him more. Yeah. And if anyone will figure it out, it'll definitely be Andy Reid for sure. Moving to the third move. My third move is not a sexy move, but it's a big, impactful move for the Raiders. The Raiders signed Tyler Linderbaum to a 3-year, $81 million deal where he got $60 million guaranteed, which is the highest ever in NFL history for an interior offensive lineman. So let's go back to when Tyler Linderbaum was drafted. Obviously, he was he was a wrestler in high school, right? So always had good feet, good with his hands. He came out of a offensive line rich school out of Iowa. And when he came out, he was one of the more athletic centers that had ever been scouted. And he lived up to that billing at the Ravens, and now he is cashing out. I think this is a great move for the Raiders. Their offensive line just, for the better part, sucked, for the entire season. And now getting a guy like Tyler Linderbaum, who's been in the league for a little minute now, and then you're going to have Fernando Mendoza, who will be the number 1 overall pick. You have a guy who can set protections, call out the blitzers, do all of the protection stuff for Fernando, things that he don't have to do. And now your running game immediately becomes better. A guy that can make a lot of those zone blocks that Clint Kubiak is going to run, being able to get that reach block, being able to get up second level, being able to get out on these screens. He's a very agile, very athletic center. I think he's earned every bit of this 3 years, $81 million with $60 guaranteed. And he's immediately going to raise the floor of that offensive line. And it's just going to be a great move for the running game and the passing game. And Fernando is going to really love, playing with Tyler Linderbaum. So, like I said, not a sexy move, but a move that was much needed for the Raiders and a sexy move for the Raiders because their offensive line sucks, right? PFF had a saying that if you can get back or you can creep back to average on your offensive line, you have a chance to be good. And I think with this move, with Tyler Linderbaum, they can do that by creeping back toward average, being a solid O-line. They have some requisite pieces to it. I mean, obviously you got the left tackle, Colton Miller, that's been there forever, right? So they have two of the more important positions on the O-line solidified, left tackle and center. So now you just find out that that right tackle, and then you get the two guards, and then you win business. I think they signed somebody else. Let me look real quick. Hold on. I got the moves right here. Thank you, everybody, for being in the live. Oh, where is the Raiders? Okay, they didn't sign anybody else yet on the O-line, so that must mean that they're going to do some more in the draft. But I do like this Tyler Linderbaum move, and I think he's going to be really good for them. Also, honorable mention for Quay Walker and the Kobe Dean, both not going back, but both playing with each other again. These are both Georgia Bulldogs, right? But they're both, signing with the Raiders and going to play again with each other. And I think it's going to be great for that defense. Again, just a great move to raise the floor of that defense and have two veteran linebackers at this point that have both been solid for the duration of their careers. They're just going to add another layer of toughness, layer of smarts, and a layer of nastiness to this defense that's going to be game-changing. So I just wanted to, highlight those moves. Fourth move is a trade, and it is the Buffalo Bills trading for DJ Moore. Now, I've been very critical of the Buffalo Bills, and I'm still going to be critical of the Buffalo Bills because Brandon Beane should be fired, period. There is no explanation or anything. He should be fired. He should have been fired with McDermott, but whatever. We're here. And he made a move, finally, to get a top wide receiver with Buffalo, trading for DJ Moore on a contract where DJ will be paid $24 million over the next 3 years. He signed a $100 million contract with the Bears, so the Buffalo will take that on. And I like it. I mean, really, it's a situation where Buffalo is going to have him on $24 million for the next 2 seasons. And that third season, they have an out where they won't take any dead money if they cut him. I believe that's in 2029, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's a great move. I think the issue for DJ Moore, was, a philosophy change with Ben Johnson coming in. The Bears had one of the best rushing attacks in the league. I believe they were, top 5 run blocking team per PFF, and they were a top 5 rushing team in terms of how good their running backs were, in the league. And, just quite naturally, everybody's targets will drop. I believe Colston Loveland led the team with 106 targets. They didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver. And then I believe he was like second on the team or second or third on the team in receiving yards. So, they were pretty much a run heavy team. And it just looked like DJ Moore was the odd man out. But I think he still has a lot of good football left. He's a very explosive athlete, can get down the field, can make plays down the field, and can win at the catch point. Also can win after the catch. Pretty much anything that you need him to do, he can do. People knock his route running, and that's a big knock. And I think at this point, it's not something that he's going to just dramatically, change since he's now in Buffalo with Josh Allen. However, what I will say is, it's a difference between knowing that you're going to, get the ball. How much, like, you can always see it when you watch the All 22. When a wide receiver or anybody understands that they're about to get the ball, they always run their routes way harder. And so it's a difference between when he was in Chicago running clear out routes to now actually being, the main target in that Buffalo offense in terms of pass catchers. So, because he's by far and away now their best receiver. And for $24 million to a young man that is 28, about to be 29, or is it 29 going on 28? Let me see. Let me see real quick. I think it's 28 going on 29, I believe. Yeah, it's 28 going on 29. For a guy that's going on 29, they had Stephon Diggs plus 32, so plus 30 also. So I think it's a great move for Buffalo. Again, it immediately raised the floor of the offense. Immediately get that number 1 wide receiver option that they have been so desperately looking for. And then they can still get another wide receiver. I mean, everybody seems to be ultra high on Keon Coleman, but Keon has to show me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a show me type of guy. And we can sit here and talk about the great offseason. He had a great offseason last year. And he came in the best shape of his life last year. Now we need to have that translate to actual production on the field. And for the beginning of the year, he was doing that. But now we need to see it over a consistent. We need to see it over a consistent year, and we need to see it into the playoffs. So, again, Keon Coleman is very young in his career and young enough to where he can still bounce back from the blunders that happened to him last season. So I'm very anxious to see, how he plays alongside a guy like DJ Moore and how his role changes and how many more plays that he makes. So this move for Buffalo was my 4th best move, right? And so next, my 5th best move is 2 moves, actually. It is 2 signings. I combined them to one. So Cleveland doing a massive restructuring and retooling of their O-line. They signed Zion Johnson to a $49.5 million contract, and then they also signed Elton Jenkins to a 2-year, $24 million deal. So you're talking about 2 of the better interior offensive linemen, especially Zion Johnson, who was a young stud coming out of Boston College, and since he started, honestly, as a rookie, just a solid guard, who can really be a cog in a run game, and improved every year, as a pass blocker. So I like this move for Cleveland because he comes over to a new system with Todd Monken to where it looks like they're going to have quite a commitment to the run. And he can, like I said, he can help with pass protection. I think he was really good at passing off, stunts and stunters and twisters. And I think that'll be good for whoever the starting quarterback is, whether that's Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson or whoever. I think this is a good signing for them. And then as far as Elton Jenkins go, he's been one of the more versatile offensive linemen in terms of being able to play center, playing guard. I believe he even played tackle at one point. So that type of versatility on the offensive line is always, welcome and always needed, And again, for a team like Cleveland who really sucked on the O-line but now can quickly, bounce back, I love this move for them. I love both of these moves for them, so that's my 5th best move. This next move for number 5 really might shock some people, but I like the Jets trading for Geno Smith. Here's why: the Jets, New York Jets traded for Geno Smith. If no one understands or knows right now, Geno Smith was drafted by the Jets. I can't remember what year it was. In the second round, and was a massive blunder. And now Geno gets the opportunity to go and redeem himself in a place where he viewed himself as somebody that failed. And secondly, why I really love this move is he's only signed for a 1 year, $3 million deal. That's what's left on the contract. So with that, the Jets are not tied to him long term. However, his upside is massive. With the Jets having, Adonai Mitchell, obviously Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, they tag Brees Hall. I think that's a solid group of playmakers. Geno has shown the ability and the propensity to push it down the field, be accurate pushing it down the field, and not afraid to take risk. I kind of want to throw out the year that he had with the Raiders being so dysfunctional, with Chip Kelly and, him not being able to get the play calls and this and that. And Pete Carroll, I've been on here many times explaining why I thought Pete Carroll was a horrible hire. So I kind of throw that last year out for Geno. And I hope coming into this year with Aaron Glenn, a new regime, some solid playmakers, I think Geno could really do some things. Listen, Geno has never been a quarterback. Well, I won't say never. But since he has been a resurged quarterback, I don't feel like he's ever sucked other than this year, right? I want to remember the Seattle days where, again, he was pushing the ball down the field. I believe he got them to the playoffs. I want to remember that, Geno. And I think with this move with the Jets, going back to a place that he's familiar with and that a place that's going to immediately put a chip on his shoulder, I think this is a great move for the Jets. This is their bridge, and while they find their, quarterback of the future, I think Geno can hold it down long enough for them to be competitive and for them to win some games, and then the Jets can prayerfully, find that quarterback that they've been looking for almost a decade. So I like Geno Smith going to the Jets on a $3.3 million deal for 1 year. I love that move. Seventh move is Connor McGovern going to the Bills. Back to the Bills on a 4-year, $50 million deal. I like it just from a continuity standpoint. Buffalo has had a top 5 O-line for the better part of, I'll say, since like 2020. In 2020, the center was Mitch Morris, right? And they were able to switch it out and get McGovern. And I thought McGovern played well. And the entire Bills line has played well, where they've been able to find young studs from Osiris Torrance to Spencer Brown, now Connor McGovern. I know he's not a young buck, but he's young enough to where he got this contract, and that they're going to invest in him long term. So if you could keep the continuity of that offensive line together, keep it right for Josh, and they've had the number 1 rusher last year. If you keep all of those things intact, you have a chance year after year. And the fact that, and I remember somebody was saying, like, continuity matters over talent when it comes to the O-line. So having that thought process in my mind, with them already trading for DJ Moore and raising the floor of their passing game, I think this was a great move, and I think it's going to pay off long-term dividends for the Buffalo Bills in terms of them being able to beat these top-tier teams and having their margin of error be so thin. Doing things like re-signing your center and keeping your O-line intact are things that help you in terms of that razor-thin margin. So I love this move for the Buffalo Bills. 8th best move, Reek Willing. Reek Willing going to the Eagles on a 1-year, $15 million deal. Now, if you guys remember, last time I got on live, we talked about Reek Willing's blunder of a play that had ultimately led to a touchdown for the Rams for Puka Nacua. He got into it with somebody on the sideline, got a penalty. It was 4th down, and ultimately we got a 1st down off his penalty, and then he gave up a touchdown on the very next play. And I had said, There's no way he is going back. There's no way he's going back to Seattle. Yes, they won a Super Bowl, but coaches remember stuff like that. And that was the worst game to do that. Like, do that in like the fourth regular season game. Don't do that in the NFC Championship. However, there are not many corners that are almost 6'4". I think he is 6'4". That is 6'4", that run a 4.3, and that have massive length. And now he's going to a team, and is that young too. How old is Rick Willen? Let me look that up. I want to see how old he is. Because I don't think he that old. I think he like 25, 24 or 25, I think. So where is he? Eagles. 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 Eagles are a very vaunted team for us. Like the Rams I'm talking about. Because they beat us all the time. Reek Willen didn't play well. Had a 59.8 PFF grades. So that's a big yikes. 6'4", 26 years old. Yeah, like, so, all the things I named are things that are working in against him. Like, he has all of the physical traits you're looking for. So, like I said, length, speed, age, all of the top, corner traits that you need to be effective. And to get him on a 1-year, $15 million deal for the Eagles is I don't want to say it's a steal because he still has concerns, about obviously maturity, and being consistent with a 59.8 grade. He didn't play particularly well this year. But pairing him with Quinyon Mitchell, pairing him with Cooper DeJean, I think that's a nice, solid trio of cornerbacks. All young, all can make plays, all are ball hawks. It's a lot of upside on this move. And again, the Eagles could mess around and have the best quarterback trio in the league, if you want to be honest. So this is a high risk, high reward move. And with the solidarity that the Eagles organization provides, and with them always being so stout on the front line, because they did sign Jordan Davis back, I think this is a great move for them. And, if he shows promise, they'll probably be interested in signing him for at least another 2 or 3 years. And if he doesn't, they'll just move on from him and wipe their hands. This probably means they're going to draft another DB. I can see that, just as an insurance policy. But I like this move for the Eagles, and I think it's going to, again, I'm going to go on the high reward side rather than the high risk side. So I like the move. So that was Rick Willen. Now we get to my 9th and 10th move. My 9th move is Isaiah Likely signing a 3-year, $40 million deal. And I don't believe his guaranteed money was put out there yet. But listen, Isaiah Likely goes to a team where he can now be the number one tight end option. He had been playing behind Mark Andrews for a while. Then Mark Andrews got an extension last year. Was it last year or the year before? I remember he got an extension, though, from the Ravens that's going to keep him there for the long term. So now Likely goes to a team with a coach that he's familiar with in John Harbaugh. And also, I forgot who was the offensive coordinator because it wasn't Monken, but it was somebody who, what's the name, was familiar with. But, individually, he brings a lot to the table in terms of being able to stretch the field, bringing a lot of body control and spectacular catches. I mean, I know he didn't really haul in a lot of the passes that were tough catches, but he has shown that he can make big catches in big moments. Like the one against the Chiefs a couple years ago where, he missed it by a toe tap. Like, he deserves, I will say, to be a number one tight end. He's been really good since college, just showing that athletic ability, being able to create after the catch. I like this move for the Giants offense. I'm giving Jackson Dart another safety blanket, another top receiving weapon to go along with Malik Neighbors. I think it's great. And then in Cam Scatterable. So I think they're building out their young nucleus of playmakers, and I would love to have Isaiah Likely on my team anytime. And on a 3-year, $40 million deal, I think he's going to outplay this deal. and I think he's going to be one of the better. This is going to be one of the better free agent signings of this free agency period. And my last move is a move where a lot of people highly coveted this guy, and that's Rashid Shaheed going back to the Seahawks on a 3-year, $51 million deal. He got $34 million guaranteed. And I think that's really because of the market. Like I said, he was one of the more highly coveted wide receivers. I mean, if you saw what he did against us in that championship game, you see the type of difference his speed makes on the outside and in the special teams. That's why I'm not really sick. Some people may say this number is really high, but I don't really think it's that high. Based upon everything that he brings to the table, and he's a solid catcher too. Like he doesn't. I don't feel like he drops the ball a lot. So I think keeping Sam Darnold's weapons, intact between obviously JSN and then now you got Shaheed that can take the top off the defense, whether that's from the outside or for the slot. Can do it in one-on-one situations. Also, I think this is another win, for Seattle. Unfortunately, they had what's the name, Kenneth Walker walk, but I guess that's why they have Zach Charbonnet. He's probably gonna be the number one guy. They may even draft another running back. So the chat's buzzing. The chat saying maybe not a top move, but Ricard blocking for Scatterboo gonna be hell on defenses. Absolutely. Definitely gonna be great for them. I was just talking about the Giants, and yeah, Donnie, who's the offensive coordinator for the Giants right now? I can't remember off the top of my head right now. Who did they get as the offensive coordinator? Tell me that real quick, because it's not Monken. Obviously, Monken is the head coach of the Browns, but I can't remember who's going to be the offensive coordinator. Nagy. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, Matt Nagy. Listen, man, people pounded on Matt Nagy so hard, but like he's shown that he can coordinate an offense. Coming from that Chiefs system, even when he was a head coach at the Bears, they always had it. Not always, but they had a solid offense, and so I have faith in him that getting a guy like Ricard who can do a multiplicity of things, not only just block, but he can play defense, can catch out of the backfield. Because I remember Lamar threw him a couple check downs. So, just he definitely going to add another layer of dimension to the offense, though. Was OC for the Chiefs on their Super Bowl runs. Absolutely. Now, I remember him. I just couldn't remember off the top of my head who was the OC. But, I like Matt Nagy. I think the Giants offense is going to be good. And I was just saying that I think Isaiah Likely is going to be one of the free agents in this class that outplay his $40 million deal. They didn't say how much he got guaranteed, but I don't care what it is. I think he's just going to outplay it. So that's all I was saying. But going back to Shaheed, I loved Shaheed. I thought the Bills were in on Shaheed. Appreciate you, Donnie, man. Thank you for following me. I appreciate that. If you could share the live, that'd be great too. But yeah, I thought Shaheed was a highly coveted prospect in this free agent class. And like I said, for Seattle to lock him up for at least the next 2 years, I think is huge. Especially for them, repeating. They did lose a lot on defense. They lost Mafe, they lost Woolen, I believe they lost Jordan Brooks too. So, they have to do some retooling, but Schneider has shown that he can draft people that can play right away. And he can get some draft picks who can contribute. So that was, I have all faith in the Seahawks that they're going to be still in the mix, right? But even with the Niners signing Mike Evans, it's not a huge move, right? But the Niners still have a window too. So between the Niners, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals, with them getting a new coach and probably raising their floor, NFC West is going to be a tough out again. And I'm looking forward to this year, but I'm not at the same time, because it's going to be a gauntlet that we're going to have to go through to get to all these teams. But I appreciate everyone in the chat. I appreciate all the love in the chat. Let me get to the chat, though, and see what the chat's saying. Donnie said, I know this is off topic, but you see Bam pass Kobe last night? Yes, I did see Bam pass Kobe last night. And a lot of my friends were not happy with Bam, and they think Bam is still trash. I didn't see the context of the game, so I can't really say like what it is or what it isn't because I'm not really a huge NBA guy. However, I trust my guys who are talking about it, and they say they don't show Bam any respect. It was almost like they felt like Washington was letting him get 82 points. So if that's the case, and then there's a difference between Bam's 82 and then Kobe's 81. Kobe had to score that 81 out of necessity. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna say he was the only guy, but like they were, I believe for the majority of that game, they were losing to the Raptors when Kobe scored that 81, and he had to hit all them shots. He was getting doubled. Kobe was just in a mode where he could not miss, and it was actually a game where he had to do that. Bam, they were already up from what my boys were saying. They were already up by like 20 or 30 points at halftime. So you just really just stat padding. And so that's the difference between, Kobe's 81 and Bam's 83. So I'm not a huge Bam Adebayo fan, but in another one of my chats, my family chat, they were saying that Asia Wilson is better than Bam Adebayo. That was funny, but I don't know. I don't know about that. I like Asia Wilson. She is the GOAT. She is a GOAT. I won't even lie about that. They said her resume, Asia Wilson's resume is better than Bam's. I will say that. She's a 4-time MVP and a 4-time league champion, I believe. So, yes, that is a heck of a resume, but, I don't think she's better than Bam, though. Donnie also says, and he set the record for free throws attempted. Wizards was helping him on purpose. Exactly. So, like I said, Kobe had to score that 81 for them to win. It seemed like everybody was in on, like, having Bam score that. Like I said, I'm not a big NBA guy. I can't really say because I don't know the context of the game, but I seen the Wizards, who are a sorry team. They was up 30, so you just scream stat padding. Nah, I'm not really giving you, that much respect on that. So, but in the same breath, shout out to Bam for scoring 82 points in the game. Was it 82? 82 points in the game. That record probably not going to be broken no time. So I think the only person who's going to have an opportunity to break that is probably either Wemby or Luka will break a record like that. So, shout out to Bam on that. Donnie says, you think Kyler goes to Minnesota or Pittsburgh? Praying that he goes to Minnesota because Minnesota could mess around and find a franchise quarterback. Again, I've said this on live 100 times. I know Kyler got maturity issues. I know he got issues with studying his playbook. But it's a difference when you have top-notch coaching and you have a top-notch system like what Kevin O'Connell can provide for him. I was actually breaking this down with one of my friends, and I was saying I don't think that because they were saying that they thought Kyler should go to the Colts, but Colts don't really like quarterbacks like Kyler, right? They like bigger quarterbacks, bigger statues. Like, again, we go to Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, and now Daniel Jones, and even AR is 6'4", right? So they like bigger quarterbacks. So even though people think that offense is great for Kyler, I don't think it was, right? But if you go to a place like Kevin O'Connell, who has shown that he can tailor the offense around any quarterback that's back there, including a guy like Josh Dobbs, who's been a career backup, I'm very excited to see what he can do, with Kyler Murray. If it was anybody else that was coordinate this offense that's not named McVay or Andy Reid or somebody like that, I would have my trepidation, but I don't. Kevin O'Connell, KOC, has shown that he can be a guy that can be the quarterback whisperer, as they call him. And I think if Kyler is taking this seriously, I hope he is. If Kyler is taking this seriously, I think they can mess around and find a guy who can push JJ for that franchise quarterback role. And I would love to see him in Minnesota and be the guy in Minnesota. That would be awesome for us. Also awesome for Justin Jefferson, right? And, Addison, right? All of these weapons that they have, and then Hawkinson too, right? I know that they praying that they have, a solid quarterback target that they haven't had in almost a year. Going back to, Kirk Cousins and then having to go through JJ and then having to go through Wentz, all of these other quarterbacks that they have. So I know they praying for some type of stability at the position, and they can find it. They can find it with Kyler if he takes it seriously. So I would love to see him in Minnesota. And I think Minnesota's a probably market favorite right now to sign him too. So I think that'd be awesome. So listen, everyone, I appreciate y'all, tuning into my live, man. I try to stay on here for at least an hour. Again, I'm trying to go every week And I'm gonna be cutting clips up from this live and then posting on my YouTube. So if y'all could give me a follow, I would appreciate it. If y'all can go follow my YouTube, it's just EJ Daniels. You can find it, on YouTube. And like and share some of my clips on here. Again, I'm gonna try to be more consistent. So I appreciate y'all, sitting through, hearing my top 10 solid free agent moves that I like. And hopefully I'm back again. There's probably going to be more moves to be had, but I had to get on here and say something, while this topic is really hot. So, stay tuned for more lives from me, and you could catch the replay of this on my YouTube channel, just EJ Daniels on YouTube, and I'm always posting clips on here too. So I appreciate y'all, and until next time, man, y'all be safe.